The secret to perfectly tender meat revealed. Beef Wellington. A classic luxury dish featuring a whole beef tenderloin at its core. This cut is chosen for its superfine fibers and naturally tender texture. Since tenderloin is lean, richness is added with extra layers around the meat. First, the beef is seared over high heat, creating a dark crust that seals in juices. Then, it's wrapped in finely chopped mushrooms, called duxelle. This adds a deep, savory taste and absorbs moisture while baking. Often, a thin layer of cured ham separates the mushrooms from the pastry. Everything is encased in puff pastry and baked until golden and crisp. The inside stays perfectly pink, tender, and juicy. Chateaubriand. A thick cut from the center of the beef tenderloin traditionally cooked whole. As one large steak, then sliced for serving. This muscle does minimal work, meaning it has very little connective tissue. That's why the meat stays incredibly tender when cooked right. Unlike fatty cuts, its texture is delicate and refined, not rich and greasy. The outside is usually seared quickly on high heat for a browned crust. Then, the meat finishes cooking more gently. When sliced, the center is uniformly pink and remarkably tender. Steak tartare. A dish that celebrates the pure taste and texture of raw beef. Instead of cooking, high-quality beef is finely minced to keep muscle fibers intact. This prevents it from becoming mushy. Since no heat is used, the meat's natural flavor stays clean and prominent. The beef is lightly seasoned with ingredients like capers, shallots, mustard, and often a raw egg yolk for extra richness. Mixed together, it's soft and delicate with a smooth, almost buttery feel. Tartare truly relies on the beef's quality and structure. Steak Diane. A thin steak quickly cooked in a hot pan, finished with a zesty pan sauce. The meat sears fast, forming a crust while staying tender inside. Once removed, butter and shallots hit the hot pan, instantly releasing aroma. Mustard, Worcestershire sauce, and cream create a rich sauce coating the meat. Classic versions add cognac, briefly flambéed to burn off alcohol and boost aroma. The steak goes back in the pan just long enough to soak up that glossy sauce. Porchetta, a traditional Italian pork roast. Known for its amazing texture contrast. The roast is usually made by wrapping fatty pork belly around lean pork loin, balancing rich fat with firm meat. Garlic, fennel, rosemary, and black pepper are rubbed deep into the meat before roasting. As the pork slowly cooks, the belly fat melts, basting the lean inside. Meanwhile, the skin dries and tightens until it's super crisp and crackling. The result? Juicy pork slices with a brittle, crunchy crust. That crisp skin shatters when sliced, releasing herbs and pork fat aroma. Chicken Kiev. A breaded chicken breast filled with chilled garlic herb butter. The butter stays very cold, so it stays solid while the chicken is shaped and breaded. As the chicken cooks, the butter melts, creating a hot, flavorful sauce inside the crust. The breadcrumb coating gets crisp and golden when fried or baked. When you cut into the chicken, melted garlic butter flows out, coating the crisp crust. The combo of crunchy outside and rich butter filling is why it's famous. Cordon bleu is a cutlet stuffed with ham and cheese, then breaded and cooked golden brown. As it heats, the cheese melts, blending with the salty ham for a creamy filling. The breadcrumb coating becomes crisp and lightly browned outside. That contrast of crunchy crust and soft, melted center defines this dish. While modern versions often use chicken, traditional ones were originally made with veal. Ballantine. A deboned meat, usually poultry, stuffed, rolled, and tied before cooking. Removing the bone allows the meat to be wrapped tightly around a filling. The roll is then roasted or braised for even cooking of the outer layer. Once done, it's sliced into neat rounds showing the stuffing inside. Each slice reveals a clean spiral of meat around the filling. Ballantine is as much about presentation as it is flavor. Osso Buco. Braised veal shank, cut across the bone so the marrow is exposed. This shank comes from a well-used muscle with lots of connective tissue. Quick cooking would make it tough, but slow braising transforms it. As the shank simmers, collagen slowly melts into gelatin. This thickens the sauce and tenderizes the meat until it's easily pulled apart. At the same time, the marrow softens and becomes buttery, adding another layer of richness. Beef bourguignon, a slow-braised beef dish. From Burgundy, France. Tougher cuts like chuck are used due to their high connective tissue. The beef is browned first for deep flavor, then simmered slowly in red wine. Over hours, collagen breaks down into gelatin, thickening the sauce while the beef becomes fork tender. The wine reduces to a dark, concentrated broth carrying the beef's flavor throughout. Braised short ribs. From the rib and plate, these have heavy marbling and thick connective tissue. That makes them too tough for quick cooking. Instead, they're seared, then braised slowly for hours. During that time, collagen melts into gelatin, enriching the sauce. Fat renders, adding more richness. By the end, the meat is super tender with a deep, concentrated beef flavor. Pot roast. A classic slow-cooked beef dish using tougher cuts that benefit from time and gentle heat. The roast is seared first for a dark crust that adds flavor. Then it's slow-cooked in liquid with veggies. As it braises, connective tissue softens, making the meat fork tender. The cooking liquid thickens into a rich gravy carrying the beef's flavor. Beef Wellington. Thin beef slices rolled around a savory filling and slow-braised until tender. The beef is usually spread with mustard and layered with onions, pickles, and bacon, then rolled tightly into small bundles. Since the beef is thin, the roll cooks evenly during braising. As it simmers in broth, muscle fibers relax and tenderize, while the filling releases flavor into the sauce. When sliced, each piece shows a spiral of beef around the savory center. The braising liquid becomes a dark, savory gravy carrying flavors from both the beef and the filling. Crown roast of pork. An impressive roast made by forming pork rib racks into a circle, bones upright. Like a crown. Cooks as one large piece, keeping the meat moist while the outer surface browns beautifully. Roasting a large cut keeps the meat juicy, while the outside gets a beautiful sear. The crown of this roast? It's often packed with stuffing or veggies before it hits the table. Even though it's surprisingly easy to cook, the show-stopping presentation makes it the ultimate centerpiece for any big get-together or celebration. What exactly is a turducken? It's a layered roast with a chicken stuffed inside a duck, then both stuffed inside a turkey. Every single bird is deboned with care before layering, with delicious stuffing nestled in between each. As it cooks, these meats fuse into one massive piece and the layers soak up each other's amazing flavors. Slice it up, and you'll see the distinct layers of poultry perfectly stacked within each other. Turducken isn't famous for being simple, but for its incredible build and jaw-dropping visual appeal. From flaky pastries and raw beef to slow-cooked braises and massive roasts, traditional meat dishes prove how various methods completely change texture, fat, and taste.